Does anyone have anything to exchange? What do you have? All right. This looks like a gift certificate for an eyebrow wax. Who else? And we're going to exchange that for, it looks like a cashew nut keychain. Today on the Quilt Show, we're going to show you how a fabric exchange can help make your quilts look more scrappy. Stick around. Ladies and gentlemen, your co-hosts, Alex Anderson and Ricky Timms.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for being here today.
What a fun day.
Absolutely. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Quilt Show. I'm Ricky Timms, and this is
Alex Anderson.
Absolutely. And Alex, today I'm very excited because we're going to show a lot about scrappy quilts and how to even get them scrappier than you can imagine.
I mean, look at these quilts behind us. They're just singing a song.
I absolutely love them. And don't put me in a box, because even though I tend to do some pretty contemporary things with bright colors, you need to know that when I walk around and look at quilts like this, I fall in love with that wonderful traditional aspect of quilting all over again.
Well, it's barking up my tree big time.
And speaking of traditional quilting, Alex, you've got some tips to teach us how to do some traditional feathered wreaths. And I know that can be a booger bear to draw, and some of you say, draw? Do I have to draw? Yes, you're going to draw, and Alex is going to teach us, so take it away.
It's really a matter of just connecting the dots. But I want to take a look at this traditional double feathered wreath. I learned how to do this in Lucy Hilty's class way back in the day. I think it was perhaps my very first quilting class. And I drafted one big one here, but it wasn't enough to really do the job, so then I did another one going the other way. And I used a metallic thread. I have to say at the time, the metallic threads were not what they are today, but still I think the results are stunning. And this is patterned after a traditional Amish quilt.
And quilted with metallic thread by hand.
Yes, by hand. These little hands right here. Now, when I took the class from Lucy, wait, first let me say this. When I see you sit down at the sewing machine and just kind of do your thing, that is extremely challenging for me because I go back to the way that Lucy taught me. I'm learning.
Oh, you are.
And once you learn a feather, you're home free, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, there are a couple tools that you need to do this. And one is a compass. And here is your, dime store. Do they have dime stores anymore?
Sure.
Do they?
Yeah.
Okay, well, the kind that you get in back to school box, a little inexpensive compass, that will work. And you can, if you want a big circle, you can pull out your pencil long, The problem with these is after time they start to slip, but you're probably only paying $1 for it anyways.
Right.
Okay. Now here's a more fancy compass, and this one will not slip. The problem with this one is that it can only go so far. And often I'll see students come in with this, and the problem is you can't get a big circle like what we wanted if we were doing that large wreath. So if you're going to get an expensive compass, at a minimum, make sure that it has an arm that reaches out, because that will give you more latitude.
Okay.
But
I love this.
Yardstick compass. This is a courtesy of Micro Mark, and it's these two crazy things. Now, these are becoming more popular in quilt shops, but they weren't for a while.
Oh, I love them. I have a set.
This end has the pointy. This end has the lead. And what you can do is stick it on a yardstick so that you can get it,
if you have yardsticks 36 inches, you could get a 72-inch circle.
Right. But also, it will fit right onto your little 1.5 by 12 Olfa ruler.
This one's a 1 1/4.
Oh, 1 1/4, I'm sorry. But this slides on here, tighten it up. Then I go to the other end, and I slide this on, loosen up the cap, slide it on, and look at that. How great is that? You can get it up to now about 24 inches.
Right, and I just want to put this down to just look at that pivot point.
Yeah, huge.
Whoa. How many of you, this is the first time you've seen this? Yeah, it's a lot of you. This is a great, great tool for making really large circles.
Right. Okay, so you need that. And then you also need a protractor. Okay, I don't want to scare people away. Geometry is not my gig, but these are the two tools that you probably will want to use. All right, now let's talk about feathers and the
I love feathers.
Anatomy of
The
feathers.
anatomy of a feather. All right, we're
Yes.
going to write a book.
For a classic feathered wreath, I am a double spine gal. I want to have two that classically are a little less than a 1/4 inch apart. Now I have a question for you. On machine quilting, do you find more that it's a double stem or a single stem?
Well, there's so many different ways to do stems. Right now, I still do a double stem on mine.
Okay, because I was actually looking at some and they were single, so this was, becoming very emotional for me. I had to make a decision here.
All right, right.
Okay.
What about a triple stem or a circular stem? I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah, it's whatever. It's
Right.
whatever you
So,
want.
but let's stick with the traditional one, which is going to have the double circle.
I want to look at these feathers up here. They are absolutely beautiful feathers. They are organically flowing off of the stem. I want you to look at these ones down here. They look like chewed fingernails.
Right, and I'm going to use the pencil and
Sure.
point because this is
You
the
can
thing-
write on it, I
well,
don't care.
This is the thing that always gets me when I'm looking at feathers. The way that this flows out from the spine is very graceful, and almost, I'm going to draw here, as if they're coming up like branches on a tree.
Right. Right.
And that creates that gracefulness. And then when I look in here, it's still flowing out, but actually it's coming a little bit more straight out. And
Yeah.
that's what really does not look good on a quilted feather.
It's not desirable to me. That's all I'm going to say. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing I want to do is, let's say this is the space that I want to fill. Okay? I want to find the center of this because that will be the center of my feather. All right, now my ruler does not reach all the way across, so that can become problematic. I can get a
so
longer ruler.
You can get a longer ruler, but if you
Or
don't have one handy.
You can go like this by butting two rulers up against each other. Go like this. Okay. I got a funky corner down
yeah,
there.
but it's not quite right still.
Okay, well, it's only abouts anyways.
Okay.
And so that's the really great thing. Like when you're piecing and you want accuracy.
Yeah, but I'm the guy that's always
Well,
just
just
about
pretend.
close enough. You're the one that's all accurate, right?
Right. Well, the thing with this is that close enough is good enough.
Yay.
That came from my mouth, Ricky Tim.
Yes, it did.
Okay, so now what I'm going to do, if this is the area of which I'm going to be quilting, I'm not going to want to go all the way to the edge because that will have your seam allowance. So I'm going to come in, I don't know, I'd say that's about a 1/2 inch, and I'm going to draw myself a circle.
Are you
okay.
stuck? Do you need some help?
You know what I didn't do?
No, you didn't lock it down.
I didn't tighten it.
That's okay.
I did now.
Close is good enough, right?
Yes.
You just wrote the book.
Then what I'm going to do, and these are all arbitrary numbers, I'm going to come in from the edge, 2 inches, another 1/4 inch, that's for my stem, I mean 1/8 of an inch, and then I'm going to come in another 2 inches. And I am going to draw rings that are this size, and that's going to give me the playground of which I'm going to create my feathers with.
Okay, don't forget to lock it down, right?
I did. The problem is, how do you dance under your arm?
Well, yeah.
You just kind of figure it out, don't you? So now I'm going to come here to the other little spot right there. Okay. See it? Okay. Go around. Thanks, Ricky, for holding my
I'm trying to
paper.
hold the paper for you there.
And then I'm going to come in to the next one, like that. And there are my 2 playgrounds that I'm going to play within, the outer spoke and the inner spoke.
Okay. And the spine.
And the spine, which I happen to like. Now, there's 2 ways you can approach this. The first one is to just kind of take, oh, that's a little small. I'm going to go like this. I'm going to put some hats in. Can you see me putting the hats in?
Mm-hmm.
Now I want,
little scallopy bits.
what I want you to notice is that they're about the same size. If this is problematic for you to judge, you could get a large spool of thread or something.
Spool of thread and
Yeah.
just use that as a template.
And then what you do is you just come down and you lay in your feather.
And again, there's where that growing out from the spine
Mm-hmm.
really takes place rather than coming into the spine.
Like that. Now, for some people, this is a little problematic.
How so?
They can't figure out the playground that they're supposed to be drawing within. So what you can do is you can take your protractor, find the center, And again, this becomes an arbitrary number, but in the case of something this size, it's about every 10 degrees. Take your ruler, put your, I have to turn this like this, put your pencil in the center, come over here, just draw the outside, bring it around, and I'm creating a playground to draw within.
So just different, so guide marks.
Yes, just guide marks. But while you think, turn this, hang in there everybody, I gotta get my hands situated. While you think this is where the, well, let me draw the caps in. I'm getting the cart in front of the horse here. Just put my little caps in. Now, if I draw my feather right within that playground, it's gonna be a stubby one. So I have to go to the neighbor and borrow sugar. I have to go halfway over there, and I come over here.
But if
and
you
I,
borrow it, you got to return it.
not in my book. Remember when I borrowed that $5 from you?
Yeah, I remember. I do remember. We'll settle up later.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there now that helps you give a playground to be within. Okay? If you want those guidelines for the inside of it, for every one, let me see, no, every 3 on the outside, you're going to want 2 on the inside. Because if you have less, if you have the same amount on the inside as you have on the outside, your feathers are going to be all squished together.
Right.
Right? So they're going to run the same direction. I'm going to do one more here. I can guess it because I've done a bunch of these feathers.
Because you're a professional.
Yes, I'm going to do, thank you for noticing. I'm going to put these hats in right here, and then I'm going to come around, and I'm going to go like that. And the upshot is when you first do your feathers, they're going to feel a little funky, and they're not all going to be beautiful. So what you do is you take some template plastic, pick out your best feather, and then go all the way around.
Right. The other thing I like that you're doing is you're sketching it in. You're not drawing it hard and fast. You've got the eraser that you can work with as well.
And then real quickly, what you need to do, actually I do this on tracing paper at home or on vellum. What you do then is once you get it how you like it in pencil, you ink it in with a Sharpie felt tip pen, and then you pin it to the underneath side of your quilt top before it's basted. Take it to a light source like a light table or a window and trace through with a silver pencil, then baste it, and you're good to go. So, do you like my traditional feathers?
I love it. Don't you love it? Absolutely, Alex. You know, we often take things like this for granted, and some people say, well, I'll just go to the store and buy a stencil, which is not a bad idea, but sometimes that stencil just won't fit your space, so why not try to do this on your own? Now, when we come back, we're going to meet a wonderful quilter who's going to teach us all about exchanges and scrappy quilts. Look at those great guys. It's Edyta Sitar. Don't go away. We're having a great time today on the Quilt Show. Alex, thanks for teaching me how to draw feathers, and thank you for giving me one of those rulers that is from Olfa, the 1¼ by 12.
You need it.
I'm happy about that, and thank you for giving me the little gift of the ruler compass.
Right.
Yeah, actually, I think that was...
No, yardstick compass.
The yardstick compass.
Right.
I think that was given to me by Macro Mark, and they have not only given me one, but they've given all of you one too. Olfa, and both of these are going home with you. So
I know everybody in break was going, where do you get that? Where do you get it? I thought, well, look in your
just
bag.
sit
when you go
around.
home.
We'll give you one. We'll
Gotta
give
stay
you
till the
one.
end.
Well, we are so excited on the Quilt Show to have a very special guest with us today who's going to teach us how to get really, really scrappy with our quilts. Please welcome Edyta Sitar to the Quilt Show. Hey, Edyta.
Nice to be here.
How are you?
I'm good.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I want to talk about your name for just a moment because you congratulated me on saying it properly, Edyta. And actually, I think you said Edyta
Yes.
from your accent because you are not from the United States originally.
No, I was born in Poland, grew up in Germany, and I live in Marshall, Michigan now. I'm married to Michael. And if you cannot pronounce my name, I encourage you to cover with sweetheart, doll, or honey.
Okay, sweetheart, doll, or honey, and why?
Yes.
Why can I do that?
Because my husband, after now almost 20 years being together, still don't know how to pronounce my name.
Okay, so he calls you sweetheart,
Yes.
doll, or honey, and so that works.
Yes, he covered with all of those.
You said your students can too, right?
Yes, yeah.
Oh,
In
that's
all my
adorable.
classes, I tell them that if you cannot pronounce my name, and you can use those 3 above.
Well, I have to say, Edyta, when I first saw your book, my heart just stopped because I too love scrap quilts, but your sense of design is so strong, and the way you nail it, she hits the nail on the head. You know,
thank
they're
you.
just wonderful.
Well, we're going to look at some of your quilts so everybody can know what we're talking about. And we're going to start with the first quilt that's right here that's got the kind of a still life with the pumpkin. Tell us about this quilt.
Well, that quilt is one of my raw edge applique quilts called Fall Memories, and it honors my mother that took me for long walks in the fall, and we pick up leaves, and I think with every leaf I created a beautiful bouquet and brought it home, and she put it in a centerpiece of her table and made a big deal out of what I brought it from the outside.
Oh, that's
so
wonderful
that's
memory.
the quilt that honors my mom.
That's wonderful. All right, let's look at the next quilt. Now, this starts getting into your, I don't know, it's a
The
kind
look.
of, it's the look. Let's
The
talk
look.
about this. This is where everything springs from.
The look is, I love putting batiks and printed fabrics all together in one quilt. It's like with children. I have 3 children. I don't make them play individually. I have them all together playing with each other. So that's what I do with my fabrics.
And they get along?
Very much
good.
so.
And like the batik and the printed fabric, they have different personalities. And you say
Absolutely.
it can work.
Yes, yeah, I love putting those different fabrics together, and that particular quilt is from my book, Hop to It, that it's about appliques that I like to do.
Good. I'm glad that that's in the book because people
Thank
will
you.
certainly want to make that. Let's look at the next quilt now that's got a lot of stripy piecing.
Yes, so all my leftovers, I gather and save it, and I put it into this crazy scrappy quilts. And that quilt calls Eldon, and it's based on 8-point star and set in log cabins in a background. And it's one of my favorites.
Is that in a book?
No, that's one of my patterns, but
Okay, good.
that quilt started up the book that I'm gonna share with you today.
I'm calling it a scrap quilt on steroids because
pretty
it's
much.
wonderful.
Oh,
it's
it's just
really
beautiful.
wonderful. Now the house quilt, let's look at that.
The house quilt comes from my new book that calls Friendship Strips and Scraps. If you don't have enough strips and scraps, you just ask your friends to swap some fabrics with you, and then you put them all together and put it into a wonderful quilt. You have no control over some of the colors, and that's what makes a great quilt.
Now, when you teach workshops, which you do all over the place,
Yes.
do you encourage people? Do you make them swap fabrics?
That's what I love to do. I invite the girls to have a class, and I call it a sweatshop. More than a class, I have them either bring their own fabrics or I bring some fabrics. We sew it together, and then they have to swap them between each other. And each of them end up with a bag full of half square triangles or multicolor scraps, strips. And then I show them how to put the scraps into the
Right.
quilt and how to use other colors to anchor up the craziness.
Okay, if I was to come to your class, this is a serious question. If I was to come to your class, I know
Yes.
what I would be bringing, my crazy, bright, multicolor hand-dyed things. And I look and go, if that got put in the class, everybody would want to pick mine out and throw them in the garbage.
Absolutely not. And I'm going to point it to some of those in my quilts. Those are like the jewels in a rough. You want some of them. They're going to give a little kick into your quilt.
Cool.
Look at you.
Look at me.
Yes.
All right. All right, let's look at the triangles. I
Oh,
love this
that
quilt.
Well, that's one of everybody's favorite, the triangle exchange. Taking 2 fabrics, light and a dark, putting them together, sewing it on a paper that allows us to be very accurate, easy to exchange. Once you swap the triangles, you end up with this wonderful bag full of scraps, and then you put it into this quilt.
That quilt, and we're getting into the center
Yeah.
of it. It just draws you right into the center. I also really appreciate the way that you have reds towards the outside, kind of as a inner border or whatever.
Yes, in coincidence, in that exchange, for some reason, most of the ladies brought reds into it. And when we swap it, I kind of separate them to the side. I noticed that there were a lot, and I placed them on the outside.
Okay, so then what I'm hearing is that this quilt, you did not make this entirely by yourself in your own studio. These are exchanges that you've gotten to make that quilt.
Yes, I have exchanged half square triangles with many different quilters through quilt shops. For example, Prairie Stitches in Oswego, Illinois, we exchanged 50,000 half square triangles between 72 ladies. And they did it 3 times. Just backdoor quilts, they exchanged over 35,000 half square triangles. Absolutely incredible quilts. It's not the triangles as much as the finishing pieces that are gonna tie it together and calm it down and put your own personality to the quilt, because I may be gonna choose nice navy to calm it down, and you're gonna go with your bright, bold, beautiful to tie it all together.
Now, not only are you an author, a pattern designer, a teacher, mom, most important. How old are the kids?
I have a 17-year-old Dauphina, Anna is 13, and Michael is 10 years old.
But you're also a fabric designer. And this last quilt, you work with Moda.
Yes.
Tell us about that quilt.
I am so blessed to be able to work with Moda, and they allow me every season to put out a collection that it's a combination of printed fabric and batiks, and they match together to take some of the guessing for quilters out of it. And I just love to do my fabrics. My newest collection calls Bon Voyage, and some of the pieces are placed in that quilt, the large quilt on a wall.
So one of the things that I'd like for you to share with us, because we're looking at all these scrappy quilts, you told me a story about whenever you gave a quilt to your mom for the first time.
Yes, so my mother was the one that started it all, and I could not help myself when I first learned how to make quilts to send one to her. And when she received the quilt, her hands dropped down and tears came down her face because she thought I was really poor. I have no money. I'm sewing little pieces together to make a blanket. So that was her understanding of quilting.
And now she's probably very proud of you because you've come a long way. Honey, sugar.
Right. Sweetheart.
And she is today an addicted quilter.
Is she?
Absolutely.
Oh, that's
I started her 2 years ago, and I tell you, I think I created a monster.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's
And
really great.
we love that.
Bring it into the quilting fold.
Right. Well, coming up next, Ricky and Edyta are going to go over to the demo table, and you're going to get busy.
I would love that.
Cool.
Can't wait.
Here we go. Welcome back. We're here with Edyta Sitar. Edyta, I'm so excited to learn what you've got going. You have many books, but one book that I want to show is your Hop to It book, which is the first book that you published?
Yes, that's my first book that I published, and I just recently was surprised. I won a Gold Award in Midwest for the best book of the year and a Silver Award in all United States.
Hey, how about that? Congratulations. And just as a reminder, the quilt on the cover is one of the quilts that we looked at in Show and Tell, right?
That's right, Hop to It.
But now you've got Friendship Triangles.
Yes.
And Friendship Triangles is what we're going to talk about today, and both of these books are published by Landauer. And in your Friendship Triangles, you've got a way to just make triangles that are fast, that are accurate, and the best part is that you can exchange them with your friends.
Yes. You know how we always think that grass is a little bit greener on the other side?
Right.
Yes, that's the way to get some of your friends' fabrics and see it indeed they are greener than yours.
All right, so where do we start? Oh, by the way, yeah, you've got this paper that we're going to be using in both 2-inch.
Yes,
right?
we have it in 2-inch size as well as 1.5. The paper that goes with the book is the 2-inch, but you can use any triangle paper that you have it already and just get a bunch of friends and start exchanging.
All right, so where do we start?
We're going to start by choosing our fabrics, and we're going to need a dark piece and a light piece. The piece should be 6.5 by 21. So when I cut my fabrics, I cut it off the bolt and usually the fabric is 41 to 42, and where the fabric is folded, I just cut it apart.
Right.
And that I have 2 sets right away.
And usually when I'm cutting, the fold is near me.
Yes.
So you cut your 6.5-inch strips and then just right across the fold.
That's right.
Okay.
And once I make a match, a dark and a light, I put them right sides together. I want to place my light on the top because later on that will help me push the seam allowance the right direction. As soon as I put them together, I take them to my ironing board and press them beautifully. They're stick
Right.
together, and I know I don't have any hidden creases.
I was going to ask that, but you don't want any of those creases that come off of when they're folded up in the shop on a fat quarter. And fat quarters would work for this as well.
Fat quarters would be wonderful. In fact, if you get a fat quarter bundle, that's great because you get a great variety of darks and lights in those.
Just remember to press it.
Yes. So once we have our fabrics placed together, we're going to take our paper and we're going to put it right on the top of it, just like that. With a little bit of a security that pins give us to it, we're going to put the pins on the outside and on the inside right here, just like I have it done.
But not on the stitching lines,
No,
because those dotted
not-
lines are stitching lines.
Yes, not on a stitching line. I almost like I play a game. And I
Oh, hopscotch.
Yes, jump on it. And the more pins you use, the better off you are because it keeps your fabric nice and sturdy when you sew.
Okay.
So the next step, we're going to prepare our sewing machine.
All right.
I like to lower the stitch in my sewing machine so the needle breaks the paper for me, so later on it's easy to peel the paper
Right.
away.
So you dial down your stitch
Yes.
length?
Yes.
What do you suggest?
I suggest 1 notch down. So if your stitch length is on 3.5, go down to 2.5. If your stitch length is 2.5, go down to 1.5. You don't want the stitches to be too tight because that way you create too much bulk into the seams. But also you do want the needle to break that paper for you.
And if the stitching is too tight, it'll also tear the paper while you're working on
the
it.
paper is very delicate. This is made in Michigan, and it's a recycled paper, so it's gonna be coming apart nice and easy.
Well, I have to remember now, from now on, that Michigan has delicate paper. That's what I have to remember, okay?
It's a recycled paper, so
Okay,
we're
no,
really
that's
proud
good.
to do our part of going green and reusing something.
That's very good. So, stitching it.
Now we have our sewing machine set. We're gonna put a thread, an Aurifil thread, weight 50, where it's a slightly lighter weight. It's very good because again, we're not gonna create bulk in our seams. Also, the color of this thread, it's one of my personal favorites. I stitch with it, I use it in my bobbin. I get a lot of thread onto my bobbin when I sew, so it goes with all the colors that I like to use.
And that color is 2370?
Yes,
All
yep.
right. So we will remember to use 2370.
Yes,
that's-
and it's one of the threads that I have in my thread kit as well.
Okay.
So when we start sewing, we're gonna start up right here on this arrow. It says start sewing, and we're gonna stitch gently right on a dotted line till we come to this line right here. Needle position should be down. With that, the needle will hold the spot as we're turning our paper around to come to the next side. Stop, turn, and keep on going this way till we make a full round come out right here.
Okay, so with no stopping, only just pivoting at
Yes.
those walls,
Yes.
then you stop right here. And
So-
then you've still got halfway to go,
Yep,
right?
this is the only time that you get to bounce off the wall.
Okay. Oh, no, I bounce off the wall all the time. I know I do.
Now we're gonna get back into it and sew one more round so we have all the sewing done on our dotted lines.
Okay, so I'm going to go here, follow that,
Yes.
bounce, 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 bounce. Oh, am I doing it right?
You're doing
Bounce,
great.
Bounce, bounce, and I'm back to the end, but I started right there.
Yes.
Okay.
So you just like my little Michael bouncing on the couch, you bounce off the walls. And you know when my
Your
mom-
little Michael or your big Michael?
My little guy. I have a little guy, and when he went to kindergarten, the teacher called me in and asked me to come in. And when I came, she said, Mrs. Sitar, Michael is like little sheriff. He knows all the rules, but doesn't obey any. At this point, I said to her, I don't speak English. Please call his father.
There you go. All right.
I
That's
promise.
a good story.
I promise not to do that to you. And then I went home, and to release my stress, I made him a Western star. For a sheriff, a Western
That's
star.
great.
So,
Now you've got to cut this apart, right?
yes,
All
we're
right.
gonna move the pins out because we don't want to cut over our pins, of course, and the pins were positioned on the straight lines, and that's what our focus will be on it. Because it's such a wonderful long piece, and the paper is created for that long piece, I'm gonna section it into 2 sections. It makes it easier for me to control it and cut it, and in case I'm visiting and talking to someone, I'm not gonna make a mistake and cut where I'm not supposed to. I'm gonna cut on all the straight lines, and I like to first trim the outside, just like this, and then I start cutting on the straight lines.
Now, how many triangles do you get, half square triangles do you get out of this?
This is wonderful. You get 28 half square triangles.
28, perfect.
Yes.
Half square triangles.
Perfect
Yes.
ones. Because once you cut on the lines, you end up with a beautiful little squares like this, and your last cut would be right through that center between the 2 half square triangle, just like that.
Right, and I have to tell everybody there's a little genius going on here because remember, we put the light fabric on top. This
Yes.
is why the light fabric's on top. Check this out.
Yes. But I want to stop for a moment just to tell you that at this moment, normally I would run and wanted to press it. When I do a fabric exchange with my friends, I don't allow them to see inside.
Ah, so
I
what do
know.
they get to see? They get to see the color on the other side?
No, they get to see the triangles inside once they get the whole bag full of multicolors. So that's the big prize for them. But right now, once we finish cutting, what we're going to do is open it up and notice it. This paper is pushing our seam allowance towards the right direction, just
Towards
like you
the dark.
mentioned. Yes.
And the paper is still flat. So that's why the light is on top. I think
Yes.
that's great.
So wonderful, because right now all that we need to do is press. Once we press our
You
triangles.
leave the paper on while you press.
Yes.
Why?
Also because it's a little stiffer, so it's easier for me to handle, and the paper is securing in place and creating almost a foundation, so I would not stretch and distort the bias that 2 triangles create.
That's very,
right here.
very good.
So it really does make a perfect triangle, and it's really nice for a group. When we exchange fabrics or we exchange blocks, we always worry about, do I sew as good as you do? I want to give you the best I can. So this will allow me to give you the best triangles I can make.
Now, do you cut the bunny ears off?
I do. I love to sit down in front of the TV and clip the bunny ears, and it's up to you. You can cut it before you peel the paper or after. I like to do it with the paper, but I remember to use my paper scissors.
Okay.
Not my very, very best applique scissors.
So when does the paper come off?
The paper comes off once the bunny ears are trimmed. Then we're gonna flip our triangles from the back, and I gently crease it, and then I pull the paper right off. And
And when do you like to do that?
I love to do that when I'm on a trips with my husband.
Ah,
Yes, you know how men never ask for direction?
I don't. No.
No, you don't.
I never ask for
We're-
directions.
I love sitting next to my husband when he's trying to solve the problem. Where are we going? And I'm peeling my paper away and not paying attention that he know what he's going and he's doing the right thing.
So you're just ignoring him and you're doing
Completely.
your work. All right.
Completely.
All right. That's great. You like
I
all
love-
that? That's wonderful technique. Absolutely. Now let's move down to this, guys. I want to just talk about a few quilts that you've got here. First of all, let's talk about this quilt and how you've got some color coordination going on, even though it's a scrap quilt.
Well, once we make 28 triangles, we're gonna swap them with other quilters, and we're gonna end up with multicolored triangles. And it's wonderful to make scrappy quilts from those. The way to keep the colors together is to anchor them by choosing a setting colors. And
Look at
in
that.
this case, the frame is setting triangles, and they are all in the same colors. I like to choose a fabric that has a lot of character, that has a bite to it, I call it, and that will hold it together and anchor up the scrappiness.
Now, what about my fabric?
Where, if you have some brighter colors, look at how beautifully they fit right in here. And I have a little square that when I looked at it individually, I thought, I cannot use this in my quilt. But look at how beautifully, and it adds a glow to it. It's that blink blink. You know, when I see a girl first time and she has that blink blink in her eye, that's one of those fabrics.
And this quilt is called Mountaintop, and this quilt is also available in pattern form.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. It's one of my patterns.
And let's look at this tree.
In this case, what we have right here is a tree farm quilt, and this is one of the quilts from the book. The tree trunks are the fabric that it's going to hold the scrappiness together and anchor it down, as well as the background fabric. When I lined up images like trees, flowers, or anything like that, I pay attention to the light, and many times the light glows on the tips of the tree. So the lightest triangles go right here on the top. And just to show you, I would take one of the triangles that we just made it and placed it into this quilt, and it could fit right in. Not a set. So
absolutely.
don't ever say, you know, you're not going to use something, it's not your colors. You can use anything you would like.
And that quilt is also available in a pattern called Tree Farm.
Yes,
Right?
in a larger size, 18 blocks, and it's a wonderful, if you're doing an exchange with a group, then you focus, you need 350 triangles to swap it with your friends, and it takes one sitting, what it means one day. I've done it many times with
I
my
bet you
friends.
have. And I bet many of you can use your friends. As a matter of fact, you're probably going to start going out and collecting friends as much as you're going to start collecting fabric. Anyway, Edyta, we're going to talk to you a little bit more, but for right now, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, Alex is going to meet with Edyta, and they're going to work on how to do some exchanges with some strips. So don't go anywhere.
Welcome back, everyone. We're here with Edyta Sitar. I can say Edyta because of Dancing with the Stars.
Well, I have a surprise for you. I don't do any dancing. I just do quilting.
I'm glad.
Don't expect.
All right. Well, your latest book is Friendships, Strips and Scraps, and it's basically like the triangle exchange, only you're taking it to a whole nother level. But before we get into that, these are just adorable. Explain what these are.
Oh, those are little bundles called cinnamon sticks or twigs, and many shops that do triangle exchange use them in their stores so customers can come in, quilters can come in. It takes the guessing of matching light and a dark. The paper is already inside. Visit your local stores and enjoy fabric exchange with your friends in the stores. You maybe meet a new friend or find an old one that you don't remember that you had.
I think that's just great. Now, as far as strip exchanges go, you have some rules for that.
Well, the rules are very basic. This time, when we're doing the exchange, it's very personal. You will take yard to 3 yards of fabric, cut them to strips, 1 to 2.5 inches, and go visit with your friends and swap it. And sometimes when I like your fabrics, I will offer you 2 of my strips for 1 of yours. Or maybe you would like something of mine and you will offer me more. So no rules, it's just swapping fabrics.
So within the same exchange, all different sizes.
Yes, you can have all different sizes, because what we're gonna make for this one is a fabric panel from the strips that we exchange. And if you don't feel like cutting strips, you can use pre-cut fabrics from Moda, like sweet rolls, honey buns, or jelly rolls.
I'm hungry.
No, I was hungry when you talk about the cinnamon sticks.
Exactly.
But let's first make our fabric, then maybe we can eat a little bit.
Okay, that sounds good.
So once we exchange our fabric, we're gonna end up going home with all this multicolored, beautiful strips. Maybe some a little bit brighter. That's good. Good thing to have some brighter ones. You're gonna take them and sew them together to one beautiful panel. And what I like to do is I start on one end, sew it, and then when I'm adding another strip to it, I sew from the other end and sew it down. I use a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and again, I use this Orofil thread because it goes with all my colors very nicely. But by sewing from opposite side, you take away some of the waving that the fabric's gonna want it to do. Because you're sewing, and as you can see, I like to mix batiks with printed fabrics, so you're sewing different qualities of fabrics. Also, what helps avoid some of the waving is spray it from the back, with starch and press all the seams one direction, and that will give an extra stiffness to the panel, and it's gonna work nice when we cut our pieces.
I can guess that you're very, very careful to make sure that there aren't tucks in here, correct?
Yes, yeah.
And then how wide will you make one of these units?
I like to make them in a size that I can control it. And the most that I can control is 18 inches wide. And sometimes I look at the pattern that I'm gonna use this in it, and it calls, maybe I'm gonna be making a spools. So I look at it just maybe half an inch bigger, I make that panel. So would be a little bit smaller than this one. But 12 to 18 inches are the most favorite ones that I like to use. Once I have my panel pre-sew, press, and ready to go, I cannot wait to see what I'm gonna come up with it, because I'm gonna take my ruler and cut my shapes. If I need rectangles, I'm gonna just use a regular ruler and a rotary and cut the rectangle 7 by 10, for example, for the beautiful house
That's
quilt.
right.
Yes.
Did you just applique the doors and windows on top then?
Absolutely, that's what I did. I pre-sew a panel and then cut the rectangles and applique the pieces later on. So it's nice and easy. What I like about making this is you have no control over the fabrics. When you're sewing, close your eyes, put your hand to the bag, and sew next one, and sew next one. Let the fabric do the thing and make it truly a scrappy quilt.
I have to guess that for some of your students, this is like really a big deal. I mean, it's very
Yes.
difficult to just let go, right?
Yes, but notice that in life we don't always have a control over.
Really?
So we just have to let go sometimes. Yes.
Spoken from one mom to another, right?
Yes, especially when you have a teenager. So you just go with the flow right here. If you decide on another shape like a diamond, it's wonderful to use a template, and you have plenty of them in your book. You will. We also have acrylic templates that you can use, and you will place it on your panel and you will cut it out your shapes. You will end up with beautiful
Look how
little
cute those are.
diamonds.
Oh, they're just adorable.
Yes, and in case there is a little bit of a waste on the bottom and the top of your panel, then you can take those two, sew them together, and put the diamond right over and cut it. So no waste at all. Once we have our shape cut, just like in our triangle exchange, the finishing fabric are calling the shots and tying everything together. In this case, we're gonna make a little table runner.
Let me hold this up. Is
Yes.
that just adorable?
Cute little 6-point stars, and those are leftover from leftovers from leftovers. So it's kind of nice to use up all and have fun with it. I'm gonna take some of those diamonds, lay them into my blocks, sew it together, finish up with the lighter pieces to accent it that indeed it's a star. Put a binding, and it makes a beautiful table topper on your dining room table.
Okay, now this little table runner and the other quilts that we're looking at are in the book, right?
Yes.
And we're just drooling over these. When you go home, they're going to be wet from all our drool. That is
You let
slobbering.
Oh, thank you.
There's probably a nicer way for me to say that. I think it's beautiful.
But it's the biggest compliment. Thank you very much. If, in case you want to do something larger, you can take the same diamond and make little tumbling blocks. And notice that what the fabric does, it creates a secondary design, and it just plays.
I want to hold this up too. I want to make sure everybody checks out the binding on or the edge of this. Was that difficult to do?
No, you come up to the corners, you stop,
We aren't quite. There we go.
and you turn your binding around, line it up with the edge of your quilt, stop on the outer corners, again, in just one step at a time. Sometimes it's one day in life, or sometimes 1 hour at a time. So just like with this binding. And the secondary design that this quilt gives us really is rewarding for as much work as we have to put into it.
Okay, now look, log cabin, it has to be one of the best. Look how striking that is.
Well, that's another result from fabric exchange. In this fabric exchange, you have to agree with your friends that you are going to exchange a certain size of a strip. In this case, is 1 inch. So everybody needs to cut the fabric to 1 inch. No making panels. You just bring your strips home and start making log cabin blocks. But it is so wonderful to use other people's fabrics and some choices that maybe you did not see in a store and you didn't buy it. Or maybe you want to share something that it's difficult to use it all by yourself. You cut it to pieces, give it to your friends.
And can you hand me this gold strip over here, please?
Yes.
I mean, this really is a rebel. And people might look at this and go, well, this simply cannot go in here. But the fact of the matter is, it's things like this that it truly will make your quilt sing.
When I see fabrics like this, I immediately see the centers of my blocks. So I grab those. I want to exchange with those ladies. So notice that in this one, I got a bunch of strips that were in pink, and there were no light, neither they were dark. So I used those pinks in the centers instead of my reds.
Okay, so now the spool quilt. Oh, please, does it, I don't want, I'm going to scoot all this over. Let's just make room for this spool quilt.
I like that.
I mean, let me tell you, folks, it doesn't get better than this. I can see Ricky coming over. Ricky, you need to hold up the corner here.
Again,
Okey-doke, I will.
Yeah, I took the panel, cut some bases, and then put them right into it. Notice it that the top and the bottom are the ones that are holding it down, anchoring the craziness, the scrappiness. And this is truly the friendship spools where all my friends gave me some strips and I put it together. One of the spools fell down and I finished it with the applique that come up from it. The applique is drawn from my applique silhouettes, what are very nice to use. And because I love Aurifil thread, I had to have an orange thread in the center. And all the button stitch appliques is done with the threads that I have brought it, and one of the viewers will receive that.
Now look at this right here, right here. Right in here, right here. Look at this, the little scissors on top. I mean, it's just the details like this that make these quilts just over the top.
Thank you.
I have enjoyed looking at these today so much, and I've also noticed that even in a scrappy quilt like this, you've got the calming effect by using the same kind of background throughout, so that there's a place for your eye to rest with all of that going on. Now, one of the things that I kind of got excited about too, I just learned that you've got a calendar.
Yes, that's my second calendar. It's for 2011, and it has wonderful 3 projects in it that I hope everyone would enjoy it.
Well, and yes, and the thing that I love about that is that what happens whenever you get rid of a calendar? When the year's gone by, the calendar goes away.
It's goodbye.
Nuh-uh. You
Not
got
this
patterns
one.
in here.
Yes.
You got patterns. You're going to want to keep those patterns around. And also, we've got some Aurifil thread today to go home with you, as well as one of the calendars. Okay? So that's really, really good stuff.
Well, this is what I've learned today. I've learned I need to get busy with half square triangles and just not throw anything away. Perhaps when I'm at the end of a project, make a strip box and make a half square triangle box with the leftover fabrics, and then it's good to go.
Well, this is what I've learned today. I've learned that I have to make some friends. But actually, we have the TQS community. What a better place to make friends and exchange triangles and strips than right here on the Quilt Show website.
That sounds like a wonderful idea. Last fall market, all modest designers, and each of us is so different, have exchanged triangles between each other, and we made quilts from those triangles. Yes, and had a wonderful schoolhouse about how fun it is to use somebody else's fabrics.
Smart.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This has been fun and super inspirational. I can speak for everybody watching.
Well, absolutely. I'm going to say for everybody, not only is this a new approach to scrap quilts, but it's new because it's a new day
Every day. Don't go anywhere. You don't want to miss the after set.
Edyta, early in the show, you talked a little bit about your mom, and I
Yes.
want you to expand on that relationship a little bit.
Well, my mom was the one that started me on sewing. When I was a little girl, maybe just 4 years old, I stood next to my mother that just finished her drapes and admired those drapes with her. And the minute she walked to the side, I took a pair of scissors and cut the drapes and made my first sewing project from it. Well,
Oh, she was happy.
very happy. I will not tell you what she did after, but I can tell you it was very similar to the situation that we got into it when I was 16 years old. I took 4 of her best sweaters and made one. To today, she tells me I was already doing Scrappy quilting. Yes. Yes. Later on, I was fortunate after I got married that I met Michael's grandmother, and she was the one that taught me how to quilt.
So your grandmother-in-law.
Yes,
Right.
Edyta Sitar. She lived in Pennsylvania, and she was a wonderful quilter. When I met her, she quilted for 60 years, and she would make many quilts, put them in a basket, and donate them to her local bingo. So many of them family members had to go to the bingo to win a quilt from her. That's how she supported
Were
her
they
church.
scrappy like yours?
Very scrappy. She used only scraps and very intricate patterns. She never used rotary. She cut everything with scissors, but her design and her techniques and her workmanship were incredible. So I'm very happy that I had that experience.
That's great. And the laundry basket, is that where you got your name then?
Yes,
Wow.
yeah. Grandma put the quilts, the special quilts that were going to the bingo, in that basket, and I have the basket now. And when I started my studio, I named it after the laundry basket, the special quilts, and we would take those quilts and hang them on a line and have a little mini quilt show.
And so if people want to find you on the web, it's laundrybasketquilts.com.
Yes, yes.
Adorable.
And I have to tell you, I don't do any laundry.
But you also sew garments, I understand. You did a prom dress. Tell us about
Yes.
that.
I made a dress for my daughter Delphina. She was going to the prom, and it was so sweet because the boy that took her to the prom kept telling everyone, Mrs. Sitar made the dress, Mrs. Sitar made the dress. He was so impressed with it, so I enjoy doing it, and my daughter very much loves it.
Now, because you do flat quilts, was it like taking forever to make that dress?
No, my mom taught me how to sew. She did not teach me how to quilt. I taught my mother how to make quilts. But my mom taught me how to sew, and I made many wedding gowns and prom dresses. And Delphina's quilt was a copy of a quilt from Project Runway. And
Her dress. Her
Yes.
dress. You said quilt. Her
dress,
yeah.
yes. And it took us 6 hours to do it.
6 hours
Yes,
to make that.
yeah, we whipped it, ripped it, and you know, today fashion, the raw edge is really popular, so it didn't take us that long.
Now, today we pretty much just scratched the surface with what you do, correct?
I
Yes.
think so,
Yes.
yes.
I mean, like this quilt in front of us here, it's just, this is wonderful, and you say it's not hard?
No, and this kind of really mirror what I like to do in quilting, taking batiks, taking printed fabrics, putting them together, taking my family traditional designs and putting them into a new quilt and bringing up fun technique, some innovative technique, and this one has just folded fabric, triangles set into the
Well,
seams.
and the tradition is not stopping with you because you've got even a younger daughter.
Yes, I have a beautiful 13-year-old Anna, and she loves making quilts, and just recently she finished 4 quilts in 1 week.
Oh, wow.
Yes, she loves sewing. She loves using Moda's jelly rolls or
Layer
cakes, and she made a beautiful quilt with those.
So with the demands of a young family, are you getting out and teaching and traveling on the circuit? Or are you having to be careful and balance that and just do the shows?
Well, I'm very fortunate that I have a wonderful husband that he helps me balance it all. And I do teach and travel and visit quilters and quilting guilds, and I always love to go and see what I can share with others.
Well, thank you so much for coming. Maybe I'll be in one of your classes.
I would love that.
Me too.
And fabric exchange.
Oh,
There you
yes,
go.
we'll do
Yes,
it.
I want some of those bright colors
You got
in
it.
my stash.
Thank
I traded
you.
with you.
Thank you, Edyta.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.